The colony of Lyra 9 stretched beneath two pale suns, its landscapes a mixture of sharp cliffs, rolling plains, and patches of alien forests that humans had just begun to explore. Life on Lyra 9 was a balance of wonder and hard work. Children played among the terraforming machines and growing cities, while adults labored tirelessly to make the colony survive. Among these children were Ilara and Kale, two who had grown inseparable in the small human settlement. Ilara was bright-eyed and fearless, always running ahead of everyone else. She had hair the color of dark copper and skin that burned easily under Lyra 9's double suns. Kyle, older by a year, was quieter but thoughtful. He often watched Ilara with a mix of amusement and caution, knowing that wherever she ran, trouble usually followed. Yet, he could never resist joining her, because she had a way of making even the dullest days feel like adventure. It was during the Festival of the Two Suns, a holiday celebrating the first successful terraforming of Lyra 9, that their story began to twist into something extraordinary. The colony's central plaza was alive with colors and laughter. Holographic lights danced over the newly grown plants, and the smell of food from human and alien kitchens mixed in the air. Ilara dragged Kyle from booth to booth, her small hands pulling him along, her laughter ringing bright and clear. "Kale, you have to try this," she cried, holding a glowing orb of sweet food. It floated in her hand like a tiny star. "It tastes like fireflies and sugar." Kyle laughed, shaking his head. "It tastes like sugar, Ilara. Nothing more. But that's the magic, silly. It's supposed to taste like happiness." Kyle chuckled but let her pull him along. The two of them ran past children chasing miniature robots, past adults demonstrating terraforming tools, past alien visitors with skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Ilara's excitement was infectious. Kale sometimes thought she might actually be from a different planet entirely. So full of energy. So untamed. So alive. At the edge of the plaza, near a small fountain that sprayed water into the air, Ilara stopped suddenly and looked at Kale with eyes wide and serious. "Kale, when I grow up, you have to marry me." Kale blinked. He wasn't expecting this. Ilara was only 8, barely understanding the idea of marriage. He knelt to meet her gaze, trying to keep the amusement out of his face. "Ilara, you're a kid," he said carefully. "We're just children. Don't you think that's a little early to make promises like that?" Ilara's face didn't waver. She took his hand in hers and squeezed it tightly. "I'm serious, Kale. You promised, right? You have to promise." Kale sighed. How could he refuse her? Her small hand was warm, and her eyes held the sort of determination that made it impossible to argue. "All right," he said finally, smiling. "I promise. When you grow up, I'll marry you." Ilara grinned, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Good, because I'm going to grow up fast. You'll see." That promise, simple and childish as it was, became a quiet thread connecting them, even as their lives began to drift in different directions. Years passed quickly on Lyra 9. The colony grew from a small settlement to a bustling city, with human ingenuity reshaping the land to support thousands. Humans were still a small presence in the galaxy, dwarfed by alien civilizations that had existed for millennia. But the people of Lyra 9 thrived through persistence, creativity, and courage. Children became adults, machines grew more complex, and the humans' reputation among the stars began to shift from fragile newcomers to intelligent, adaptable pioneers. Ilara's spirit never faded. Even as she grew taller and wiser, she kept the same fearless spark. She loved studying alien cultures and languages, and she dreamed of representing humans in the wider galaxy. Kyle, meanwhile, became fascinated by exploration. He wanted to push past Lyra 9's borders and chart the unclaimed regions of space. While he was adventurous, he always carried a quiet steadiness, a reflection of the human determination that had kept their colony alive in a hostile world. They saw each other less often as they grew older. Elara spent months on diplomatic missions, learning about alien governments and forging alliances. Kale spent years aboard exploration ships, mapping uncharted space, sometimes missing months or even years of life back on Lyra 9. Yet, in rare moments when they met, it was as though no time had passed at all. Their bond, rooted in that simple childhood promise, remained unbroken. One evening, when Kale returned from a long journey near the edge of the human colonies, he found Elara in the city gardens, sitting beneath the pale light of Lyra 9's moons. She looked older now, confident and beautiful in a way that demanded attention. Yet her eyes were still the same fearless eyes of a child he once knew. "You came back," she said softly, though there was a hint of a challenge in her voice. Kale smiled, lowering himself beside her. "I always do. The universe isn't that big. At least, not when you know where to look." Elara laughed, the sound, light and musical. "You haven't changed. You're still full of big ideas that make everyone else nervous. And you haven't changed either. Still fearless, still determined, still making plans I don't understand." They sat together in silence, watching the moons rise over the city. Kale thought about the promise he had made all those years ago, how impossible it had seemed at the time, and yet how important it had become. Humans were rare in the galaxy, and their stories often ended too soon. But this story, his story with Elara, was far from over. Elara turned to him suddenly, her gaze sharp. "Kale, do you remember the promise you made me?" Kale hesitated, feeling the weight of the years. "I do. But you were a kid. I never thought you'd actually want me to keep it when you grew up." "I wanted you to," she said simply. "But I also wanted to grow on my own. I wanted to see what humans like us could really do in this galaxy." Kale nodded slowly, understanding more than she could know. Humans were often underestimated by aliens, small, fragile, unpredictable. But that was exactly why they were dangerous. They had creativity, courage, and resilience that no alien species could match. And Elara, like all humans, embodied that spirit fully. As the night deepened, they spoke of dreams, of exploration, of the future of humanity among the stars. Kale realized that even though time and distance had shaped them into different people, the spark between them, their shared courage, their shared humanity, remained. It was not just a promise of marriage, it was a promise of trust, of respect, and of the human potential that they both carried. Above them, Lyra 9's moons glimmered like distant stars, reflecting the light of human ambition. The colony hummed with life, with laughter and invention, with hope, and somewhere in that vast universe, humans like Kale and Elara were learning that the bonds of the heart, combined with the strength of the human mind, could change not just their world, but the stars themselves. That night, under the moons of Lyra 9, a promise made in childhood quietly became more than a childhood joke. It became a symbol of what humans could achieve: courage, creativity, and a refusal to give in, even when the galaxy seemed too vast, too dangerous, or too alien. And for Kale and Elara, it was the beginning of a journey neither of them could yet fully imagine. Years passed on Lyra 9, and the colony had changed. Where once there had been small settlements and temporary shelters, there were now cities of steel and glass, roads winding between green parks, and laboratories filled with human ingenuity. Technology hummed everywhere, a testament to the human drive to adapt and survive. Yet, as the colony grew, so did the distance between Elara and Kale. Elara had become one of the youngest diplomats in human history. Her sharp mind and fearless nature made her ideal for dealing with alien governments, and she quickly earned respect across the human colonies. She studied languages, customs, and law, mastering alien negotiation techniques with ease. She was ambitious, but she never lost the spark that had made her so brave as a child: the curiosity, the joy, the courage to step into unknown spaces. Kale, meanwhile, had taken a different path. He became an explorer, charting the outer borders of human-colonized space. While Ilara negotiated with alien civilizations, Kale faced the raw challenges of the universe: uncharted planets, rogue asteroids, and the silent dangers of space itself. Humans were still considered weak by older alien civilizations, fragile beings prone to emotion and error. Kale's missions were dangerous, often dismissed as foolhardy. But each success, each new star system mapped, proved the opposite. Humans were capable of brilliance and courage that surprised even the oldest species in the galaxy. Despite their separate lives, both Ilara and Kale carried memories of that childhood promise. It lingered quietly in the back of their minds, a tether that linked them across light years and years of change. And though neither spoke of it often, they each felt the weight of it, a reminder of innocence, loyalty, and human determination. One day, Ilara received a message from Kale that startled her. His ship, the Pathfinder, had been damaged during an expedition in the unclaimed sectors near the Orion Expanse. The message was short and urgent. Need help. Coordinates attached. Alien presence. Threat unknown. Ilara did not hesitate. Though her life as a diplomat was safe compared to Kale's dangerous expeditions, she did not fear danger. She knew that humans were resourceful, able to find solutions where others could only see despair. She gathered a small team, prepared for travel through unstable space routes, and set off to find Kale. The journey was tense. Navigation through uncharted space was difficult. The expanse was filled with strange radiation storms and debris fields. Yet, Ilara's human ingenuity and careful planning kept the ship on course. She reflected on the difference between humans and the older alien species. Aliens often relied on tradition and rigid rules, while humans adapted, experimented, and learned quickly. That adaptability was a strength, a key to survival. When Ilara finally arrived at the coordinates, she found Kale's ship badly damaged, drifting near a small asteroid belt. The ship's hull was scarred, and its engines barely functional. Kale was alive, but barely. And the situation was more dangerous than the message had conveyed. Alien patrol ships, unknown in origin, circled the area, scanning for any signs of life. Ilara. Kale gasped when he saw her. Relief softened his face for the first time in years. I didn't expect you to come. Goaded. Reed. You knew I would, she said calmly, though her heart raced. Humans don't leave their own behind. Creasing, sense of courting, working together, they executed a daring plan. Using the asteroid belt for cover, they repaired the ship enough to move. Kale piloted the Pathfinder, while Ilara coordinated strategy, directing small attacks to distract the alien patrols. Her decisions were quick, clever, and unexpected, showing once again the human skill at improvisation under pressure. It was not just survival, it was triumph. Against all odds, they escaped the expanse. Kale's ship battered, but still functional. The alien pursuers left behind in confusion. On the journey back to Lyra 9, they finally had a moment to speak freely. You've grown stronger, Kale admitted. I thought I was the brave one, but you're incredible. Ilara smiled, brushing a hand through her hair. Humans have to be. We survive because we adapt, we fight, and we keep learning. Even when everything seems against us, we find a way. Kale looked at her, seeing not just the girl he once promised to marry, but a fully formed human being, a symbol of everything humanity could be: brave, clever, and determined. He realized that humans were underestimated not because they were weak, but because their unpredictability made them unstoppable. Back on Lyra 9, they faced the consequences of the Expanse mission. Alien diplomats were curious about the human ship's survival, the bold maneuvers, and the unusual tactics employed. Many aliens called it reckless, yet none could deny the skill and courage involved. Ilara's diplomatic work took on a new edge. She was no longer just a negotiator. She was a human, proving to the galaxy that their species was clever, resourceful, and capable of extraordinary feats. Kale returned to exploration, now accompanied by a small team of humans inspired by his missions. Ilara continued her diplomatic work, but she and Kale stayed in contact, sending messages about discoveries, dangers, and plans. Humans were still small in number, still fragile compared to the older alien species, but their achievements became impossible to ignore. And in every message, every plan, every challenge overcome, the memory of a childhood promise lingered. One quiet evening, Kyle looked at the stars from his ship's observation deck. He thought about Ilara, about their shared past, and about humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans were young, untested in the vast universe, but they had courage, creativity, and the ability to dream where older species hesitated. That promise he had made as a child was no longer a childish game. It was a symbol of trust, partnership, and the human spirit itself. Ilara, back on Lyra 9, watched the moons rise above the city and thought the same. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, explorers, and connectors. They faced danger with ingenuity and approached challenges with courage. She thought of Kale and their shared history, realizing that the promise of childhood had become a guiding light, a reminder of how humans could endure and thrive in a galaxy that often underestimated them. As the two of them continued on separate paths, the galaxy itself began to take notice of humanity. Aliens whispered about the humans who defied expectations, who survived impossible dangers, and who solved problems with intelligence and daring. Kale and Ilara, though apart, embodied that change. Together, in memory and in action, they showed what humans could achieve: survival, success, and a presence in the stars that could not be ignored. The universe was vast, full of mysteries, dangers, and civilizations that had existed for thousands of years before humans even left Earth. Yet, humans like Kale and Ilara carried a spark that no alien could replicate, a spark of courage, creativity, and unyielding spirit. That spark would guide them through challenges to come, across uncharted worlds and dangerous alliances. And it all began with a simple promise, made beneath the pale suns of Lyra 9, that had grown into something far greater than childhood imagination. For now, they were apart, pursuing their individual missions. But the threads of human ingenuity and resilience wove their paths together, across light years and years, connecting them to each other and to the greater story of humanity in the stars. The galaxy was vast, but for humans, it was not infinite. It was a place to explore, to conquer, and to leave a mark, proving that even a small species could shine brightly against the darkness. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of their hearts, Kale and Ilara remembered that childhood promise. It was not a weight or a burden, but a symbol of trust, hope, and the enduring human spirit. In every challenge, every adventure, and every unknown star, it reminded them humans were special, and their story was only beginning. The galaxy was changing, and not all of it was welcoming. Humans were still young among the stars, a fledgling species compared to civilizations that had existed for millennia. Yet, they had begun to make their presence known, not through sheer numbers, but through courage, creativity, and unyielding determination. Kale and Ilara, though often apart, were at the forefront of this human rise. It began with a warning. Ilara received a coded transmission from a distant colony in the Zalari sector. The message was fragmented, full of static, but the urgency was clear. Threat detected. Attack imminent. Evacuate if possible. She read it twice, then traced the signal. Whoever or whatever was behind this was moving quickly, targeting humans for reasons she could not yet understand. KL, exploring a nearby uncharted system, intercepted the same warning. His sensors picked up unfamiliar ships, sleek and fast, with energy signatures unlike anything humans had catalogued. They were hostile, they were organized, and they were closing in on multiple human colonies at alarming speed. Elara and Kale met immediately, coordinating plans via secure comms. For the first time in years, their work aligned. Elara's sharp diplomacy and Kale's exploration experience became a combined force. "They're targeting us," Elara said, her voice steady despite the tension. "We need to find out why, and we need to protect the colonies." Kale nodded, scanning the star systems nearby. "These ships, they're faster than anything we've seen. But humans have a way of turning disadvantages into opportunities. We can fight smart, not just fast." They arrived at the first colony under threat, a small outpost on a barren planet. The alien ships hovered above, scanning, calculating, preparing to strike. Kale's ship, the Pathfinder, moved silently through asteroid fields, avoiding detection, while Elara's diplomatic vessel broadcast messages of surrender and negotiation. The aliens ignored the messages. It became clear that negotiation alone would not work. Elara's mind raced, seeking alternatives. Humans, she thought, survive because they adapt. Where others saw danger as the end, humans saw it as a challenge. She proposed a daring plan, a coordinated trap using the terrain, human technology, and the element of surprise. Kale, impressed by her strategy, agreed immediately. "It's risky," he warned, "but humans thrive when others doubt them." The plan unfolded over hours. Kale's team used the asteroid belt and debris fields to create false sensor readings, drawing the alien ships into narrow paths where their size and speed worked against them. Elara coordinated ground teams on the colony, setting automated defenses and creating escape routes for civilians. Every decision was precise, every move calculated, yet flexible. If anything went wrong, human lives could be lost. The alien ships attacked as expected, firing energy pulses that tore into the barren ground. But Kale's tactics worked. The ships collided with debris or were forced to retreat into traps, where Elara's automated defenses disabled key systems. One by one, the attackers faltered, unable to adapt to the human combination of creativity and boldness. When the dust settled, the colony was safe. Few humans were harmed, and the alien ships had been forced to retreat, leaving a trail of disabled craft behind. Kale and Elara surveyed the scene, their hearts pounding with relief and adrenaline. "You did it," Kale said quietly. "Humans did it." Elara shook her head, smiling faintly. "We did it together. That's what humans do. We survive, but we also protect each other, and we find a way, no matter how impossible it seems." But the danger was not over. Analysis of the alien ships revealed a deeper threat. A coalition of multiple civilizations, working in secret, determined to prevent humanity from expanding. They viewed humans as unpredictable and dangerous, a species that could not be controlled. The coalition was moving quickly, and the galaxy's older powers were already preparing for more attacks. Elara knew they could not respond alone. She began sending messages to other human colonies, urging cooperation, sharing tactics, and coordinating defenses. Kale scouted new routes for supply ships and reconnaissance missions, mapping areas where humans could safely establish new colonies. Together, they became the face of human resilience, showing that a small, young species could survive against overwhelming odds. As the days passed, Elara and Kyle faced personal challenges as well. Many humans doubted their ability to withstand such an organized threat. Fear spread quickly, and morale was fragile. Yet, Every time they encountered hesitation, they reminded humans of what they were capable of, what humans always were: adaptable, inventive, and unyielding. One night, after a particularly long day of planning, Kale and Alara stood on the observation deck of the Pathfinder. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to human determination. Kale looked at Alara, noting the calm strength in her eyes. "Do you ever wonder why we fight so hard, even when the odds are against us?" Alara considered this for a moment. "Because we are human. We survive. We don't give up. And we don't just survive for ourselves, we survive for each other. That's what makes us strong." Kale nodded, understanding more deeply than ever before. Humans were underestimated because they were unpredictable. They relied on empathy as much as logic, on imagination as much as strength. That combination made them dangerous not in a weaponized sense, but in a way that older civilizations could not control or anticipate. Their mission soon led them to the heart of the Coalition's plans: a massive space station orbiting a dead star, coordinating attacks on human colonies. Kale and Alara devised a strategy that required both courage and cunning. They would infiltrate the station, gather intelligence, and disable the command network controlling the alien fleet. Failure would mean not just their deaths, but the potential destruction of multiple human colonies. The approach was tense. Kyle piloted the Pathfinder through hidden corridors of asteroid fields, while Ilara used her diplomatic knowledge to predict alien patrol patterns and security protocols. The station was heavily guarded, but humans, again, relied on ingenuity rather than brute force. Using stealth, clever distractions, and improvisation, they infiltrated the station and began collecting critical data. Inside, Ilara and Kyle discovered evidence of a deeper conspiracy. The Coalition had underestimated human adaptability and creativity. They assumed that humans could only respond predictably. Yet, humans had repeatedly demonstrated that they could turn desperate situations into victories. The Coalition feared this more than anything because humans were small in number, but enormous in potential. Kale and Alara transmitted the intelligence back to human colonies, allowing coordinated strikes and defensive maneuvers. The Coalition was forced into retreat once again, suffering losses that reshaped their strategy. Humanity had survived, and more than survived. Humans had shown that even against overwhelming force, they could prevail. After the battle, Kale and Ilara reflected on what had occurred. The threat was not gone entirely. The galaxy remained a dangerous place. But humanity had proven something crucial. Courage, creativity, and empathy were strengths no civilization could dismiss. Humans were not weak. They were extraordinary, capable of adapting, surviving, and thriving, even in hostile environments. As they looked at the stars, Kale spoke softly. "Do you remember the promise we made as children?" "One." Ilara smiled, her gaze distant. "I do, and it doesn't matter that we were children then. Humans keep promises in more ways than one. We adapt, we protect, we survive. We keep the spirit of what we promised." Kale nodded. The childhood promise had evolved. It was no longer just about a personal connection. It symbolized the human spirit itself. A small, young species that refused to be ignored, that faced danger with courage, and that found ways to thrive against impossible odds. The galaxy had seen the humans' potential. And Kale and Ilara, though still young by the standards of spacefaring civilizations, were leading the way. They were the embodiment of human ingenuity and resilience, demonstrating that even in a vast, dangerous universe, humans could survive, excel, and leave a mark. For the first time in years, Kael allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. Humans were often dismissed, underestimated, and ignored, but they were capable of greatness beyond imagination. And with Ilara at his side, Whether near or far, he knew that humanity's story was only beginning. And somewhere, deep in the quiet of their hearts, the childhood promise remained. Not as a burden, but as a symbol of trust, hope, and enduring human strength. In every battle, every challenge, every unknown star, humans had proven themselves, and they would continue to do so, no matter what the galaxy threw at them. Years of danger and adventure had shaped Kale and Alara into leaders, not only of humans, but also of their own destiny. The galaxy, once indifferent or dismissive of humanity, now watched closely. Humans were small in number, young among the stars. Yet they had demonstrated courage, creativity, and determination that no alien species could ignore. Alara had become a celebrated diplomat. Her name was known in every human colony and in the embassies of multiple alien civilizations. She negotiated treaties that protected humans, brokered alliances with cautious aliens, and ensured that humanity had a voice wherever decisions were made. Her skill was not in imposing power but in understanding others, predicting their moves, and finding solutions that others could not imagine. Kale continued his explorations, charting new systems, discovering habitable planets, and mapping routes that would allow human colonies to expand safely. His daring missions, once considered reckless, were now seen as brilliant feats of human ingenuity. Where aliens relied on logic, tradition, or overwhelming strength, Kale and his teams used creativity, improvisation, and adaptability to survive and often succeed beyond expectation. Despite their successes, the memory of a simple childhood promise lingered between them, unspoken but powerful. It had been made under the twin suns of Lyra 9, when life was simpler and the universe seemed enormous but safe. That promise, a naive agreement between children, had transformed into something more. A symbol of trust, partnership, and the human spirit. One day, Kale returned to Lyra 9, his latest mission complete. He had charted a new cluster of systems suitable for colonization and had discovered resources that would secure human survival for generations. Yet, more than these accomplishments, he was eager to see Alara. Years apart had not weakened their connection. It had strengthened it. He found her in the diplomatic center, reviewing reports and preparing for a meeting with an alien council. She looked up when he entered, and for a moment, the weight of years vanished. The fearless child he remembered was still there, beneath the calm, confident exterior of the woman she had become. "You're back," she said softly, though her eyes sparkled with relief. "I promised," Kale replied, smiling. Alara walked to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've changed," she said, not as a critique but as an observation. "You're braver, wiser, and still stubborn." Kale laughed, a sound full of warmth and familiarity. Together, they walked to the observation deck, where Lyra 9's twin suns glimmered over the colony, bathing the city in soft golden light. Humans moved below, building, inventing, and growing a testament to resilience and ambition. Alara spoke quietly, almost to herself. "Do you remember the promise we made?" Kale nodded. "I do. And I've thought about it often. Not just as a promise between two people, but as a promise about humans themselves. We said we would face the future together. We have, in a way, every time we protect our people, every time we explore, every time we survive." Alara smiled. "Humans aren't perfect, but we endure. We fight, we adapt, we create, and we never give up. And somehow, against all odds, we inspire each other to be better." Kale looked out at the colony, thinking of all the dangers they had faced together and apart. The alien coalition that had tried to crush humanity, the uncharted systems full of unknown threats, the challenges of building alliances in a galaxy that often doubted them. All of it had tested them. Yet, humans had survived, thrived, and grown stronger. That was their true power. Not in weapons or numbers, but in ingenuity, courage, and unity. Ilara turned to him, her expression serious yet gentle. Kale, you know, that promise we made as kids? It wasn't just about us. It was about believing in something bigger, something beyond ourselves. Humanity, for example. Humans are small, but we are extraordinary because we care, because we create, because we never give up. That's the promise. Kale took her hand, feeling the warmth and trust that had always existed between them. Then let's keep it, he said. Not just for us, but for every human out there. Across the stars. Let's show them what humans can do together. The following months were busy. Kale led new exploration missions, discovering worlds with potential for human settlement. Ilara negotiated peace treaties and alliances that strengthened humanity's position in the galaxy. Yet, despite the endless work, they always found time for each other. Their bond, rooted in childhood, had matured into a partnership that inspired all humans who knew them. One evening, after a particularly challenging diplomatic negotiation, Kale and Ilara sat together on the observation deck. The stars stretched infinitely before them, the galaxy alive with possibilities. You know, Kale said, we've come a long way from that festival on Lyra 9, haven't we? Ilara nodded, smiling. We have. And yet, in a way, we're still the same. Humans still dream, still hope, still push beyond what anyone thinks is possible. That never changes. End quote. Kale squeezed her hand gently. It doesn't. And that's why I made that promise, and why I would make it again. Not because I owe you, but because I believe in what humans can do when we work together, when we trust each other, and when we never give up. Ilara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the light of the distant suns. I understand now. Promises aren't just words. They are actions. They are trust, courage, and the willingness to face the unknown. Humans keep promises, in all the ways that matter. The two of them sat in silence for a while, watching the colony below, listening to the hum of human life, and thinking about the future. They knew the galaxy would always be full of challenges, of threats, and of mysteries that could not be predicted. Yet, humans had faced the impossible before, and they would continue to do so. In the months that followed, Kale and Ilara led humanity into a new era. Humans established colonies in new systems, built alliances with cautious alien civilizations, and defended themselves against threats that once seemed insurmountable. Their achievements were celebrated not only on Lyra 9 but across human settlements in the galaxy. And throughout it all, the childhood promise remained not as a childish agreement, but as a symbol of trust, resilience, and the human spirit. Humans were small and young, yet they had courage, creativity, and determination that no civilization could ignore. Kale and Ilara were living proof. One quiet night, after a particularly successful mission, Kale turned to Ilara. Do you remember what you said when we were kids? Ilara laughed softly. You promised to marry me when I grew up, and I thought it was impossible. But here we are, growing, learning, and facing the galaxy together. Kale smiled, taking her hand. It was never just about marriage. It was about trust, about believing in each other, about humanity. And I've kept that promise every day, in every decision, every mission, every time we've faced the unknown. Ilara nodded, understanding fully. Then we've kept it, Kale. And we'll keep it. No matter what comes next. Humans endure. Humans create. Humans survive. That is who we are. They stood together, looking at the stars, feeling the warmth of the colony below, and knowing that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but humans had a place in it. They were small but extraordinary, and with courage, creativity, and the bond between them, there was nothing they could not face. The childhood promise, simple and innocent as it had become something far greater. It was a symbol of humanity itself, brave, clever, adaptable, and unyielding. And Kale and Alara, together, were proof that even the smallest species could shine brightly in a universe that often underestimated them. As Lyra Nine's twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, Kale and Alara knew that humanity's story was only beginning. The galaxy was full of challenges, mysteries, and civilizations far older and wiser than humans. But it was also full of opportunity, and humans, with courage and ingenuity, would carve their place among the stars together. And somewhere, deep in the quiet of their hearts, the promise lived on, not as a weight, not as a rule, but as a testament to trust, hope, and the enduring power of human spirit. Humans were small, humans were young, but humans were extraordinary, and the galaxy would never forget it.